And that's the thing about being bad. Just because you're awful right now doesn't mean you can't dream of a bright future around the corner. This week on the Sportsnet Power Rankings, we are digging around the basement to talk about some of the NHL's worst teams. Now, there tends to be two types of bad teams. Those that entered the season expecting, somewhere in their heart of hearts, to be pretty awful, and those that thought they would be competitive, but for one reason or another, just are not. Let's start with the latter of that group and talk about two teams that have fired GMs this year, Columbus and Ottawa. Columbus just recently let go of GM Jarmo Kekalainen, who'd been at the helm in Ohio for a decade. Just when they thought things couldn't get worse coming off a nightmarish 59-point season last year, it's truly been a year from hell in Columbus. It started with the misguided hiring of Mike Babcock as coach back in the summer and carried over into the year where the team has severely underperformed. That said, this might be a pretty nice gig for a new GM to take over. You already have a franchise center in rookie Adam Fantilli. David Jiricek looks like a right-shooting future stud on the blue line. And if Zach Werenski could ever stay healthy for a full 82, there's definitely something to work with in Columbus. As for the Senators, former GM Pierre Dorion was deposed for a few reasons, not the least of which was the team's performance on the ice. Dorion bit big on free agent goalie Joonas Korpisalo, and the Finn has been a huge disappointment. Indeed, if you're looking for a critical factor in the depressing season of the Sens, search no further than the goalie duo of Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg, which has produced the worst 5-on-5 save percentage in the league. If I told you before the season the Buffalo Sabres were going to have yet another disappointing year, you might guess it was that team's goaltending that did the squad in as well. And while it's true the Sabres goalies haven't been exactly stellar all season long, it's actually the forwards that have let that club down the most. Last year, Buffalo had young gunners all over the ice that scored the third most goals per game in the league. This year, that number is all the way down to number 21, and it's a big reason why the tortured fan base in Western New York is enduring yet another trying winter. To some degree, most of us expected Ottawa, Buffalo, and Columbus to be better than they are. The teams we're about to touch on, though, land pretty much exactly where we expected in the standings. No matter what happens from here, the Chicago Blackhawks rebuild got all the luck it could ask for when the team drafted Connor Bedard first overall last June. Bedard, who missed just over a month with a fractured jaw, has been as good as advertised, and the team has debuted a pair of interesting defensemen as well, Kevin Korchinski and Alex Vlasic. Still, the Hawks tore this thing down to the studs, and Chicago is still the very worst team in the league by points percentage. The Anaheim Ducks may be bad, but they've got intriguing players all over the ice. Up front, Mason McTavish and Leo Carlsson could one day form a 1-2 center punch that might be the envy of the league. Pavel Mintyukov is having a wonderful rookie season on the blue line and just returned from a month-long absence, while Lucas Dostal is one of the most intriguing goalies in hockey. The Ducks haven't played a postseason game since 2018. There's a lot to get excited about in Southern California. There may be optimism in the OC, but it's hard to say that's the case just yet in Northern California. The Sharks lost 11 straight out of the gate and outdid themselves with another 12-game losing skid this winter. This team is still dotted with big, bloated contracts. There's just not a lot to love in the pipeline yet outside of Boston College center Will Smith. Sharks fans probably don't want to hear it, but it's going to be a long road to hoe to get this team back to being the year-over-year contender we saw in San Jose for so long. Naturally, a lottery win and the right to draft former junior Shark Macklin Celebrini would change a lot about San Jose's outlook. And of course, that's true for every team we've talked about. Whether you're a Columbus fan dreaming of Fantilli and Celebrini 1-2 down the middle, or, and could you imagine, the Blackhawks going back-to-back and drafting Celebrini first overall 12 months after drafting Bedard. And that's the thing about being bad. Just because you're awful right now doesn't mean you can't dream of a bright future around the corner. Now let's get a look at the full ranking. What a year for the Panthers. The defending Eastern Conference champs are all the way up to number 1 this week. You gotta give it to the Leafs for the way they battled and won with Morgan Riley out of the lineup. Just when you thought Minnesota was officially in lottery mode, the Wild have climbed back into the Western Conference playoff picture. Man, the bottom has just fallen out in Arizona, and a team that already has so many draft picks is likely eyeing the first overall pick now. All right, I'm Ryan Dixon. That's all the time we have this week. But whether you're a fan of a top-of-the-table team or one of these cellar dwellers we talked about today, come back next week and all season long for the Sportsnet Power Rankings.